Julian Moretti was born into power. His last name was whispered in boardrooms and feared in courtrooms. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in the history of Moretti Industries, a multinational conglomerate with stakes in tech, real estate, and pharmaceuticals. He was brilliant, cold, and unapologetically ruthless. But beneath the perfect suits and power plays, Julian carried a secret. He had never been able to outshine his cousin Raphael. Raphael Moretti, 2 years older, wasn't CEO, but he didn't need the title. With a devilish charm, a degree from Cambridge, and a face that belonged on magazine covers, Raphael handled international relations, brand image, and most importantly, the family's overseas accounts. If Julian was the mind, Raphael was the mask, and together they were untouchable. Until she arrived. Her name was Alina. Nobody knew her real last name, just that she had been raised in Monte Carlo, modeled in Milan, and disappeared from the spotlight before 25. Rumor said she came from old money. Some said she ran from it. But everyone agreed on one thing. She was dangerously beautiful. Julian met her first at a gala for one of the Moretti Foundation's hospitals. She was wearing a red dress that looked painted onto her body, and she carried herself like she owned the room, even though no one seemed to know who invited her. "Julian Moretti," he said, offering his hand. "Alina," she replied, her eyes locked onto his without a blink. "No last name." He smiled. So did she. And something unspoken passed between them. For the next few weeks, Julian saw her in Flash's private dinners, boardroom receptions, fashion shows. She never stayed long, never gave too much. She was mystery in motion. And Julian, for the first time in his life, felt out of control. Then came the betrayal. It started with a tabloid photo. Raphael stepping out of a Parisian hotel with Alina. The headline was brutal. Moretti cousins caught in love triangle with Monaco heiress. Julian didn't confront Raphael immediately. He watched, waited, had his people investigate quietly. But what he found shook him more than the article. Raphael and Alina had known each other for months. In fact, Raphael had met her before the gale, during a secret investment trip in Saint-Tropez. They had been careful, until now. Julian felt it as more than betrayal. It was humiliation. And Julian Moretti did not tolerate humiliation. At the next board meeting, the tension between the cousins was almost palpable. Even the CFO, an emotionless number cruncher named Evelyn Kwan, kept glancing between them like she expected one to throw a punch. But both smiled. Both played their parts. For now, the truth was, Alina had changed something in both of them. She was like a mirror that reflected back their worst instincts: jealousy, possessiveness, pride. And she knew it. Behind closed doors, Alina played a dangerous game. To Julian, she was elegance and restraint. A woman who understood the burden of empire, who listened more than she spoke. To Raphael, she was fire. Unpredictable, seductive, wild. And to herself, Alina was the master. She wasn't here for love. She was here for revenge. 20 years earlier, Alina's father had been ruined by Moretti Industries. A failed merger, engineered by Julian's father and rubber-stamped by Raphael's. The fall had driven him to suicide and left Alina and her mother on the run, changing identities across continents. She had vowed to destroy them, not with guns, not with lawsuits, but from the inside. Her plan was slow, surgical. Make the cousins turn on each other. Make the board question their leadership. Leak just enough to the media to cause a crack in their public image. And when the moment was right, when their empire was unsteady, she'd deliver the final blow. But she didn't count on one thing. She didn't count on falling in love with one of them. It wasn't Julian. Despite his power and intelligence, he treated her like a prize. Controlled, curated, collected. It was Raphael. He made her laugh. He made her feel. And even when she tried to push him away, he kept coming back, not with promises, but with vulnerability. Still, her mission continued. She had waited too long. Her father's death deserved justice. The crack came sooner than she expected. A leaked email. Anonymous. Sent to every board member. It detailed a questionable offshore investment made by Raphael on Alina's recommendation. It wasn't illegal, but it was reckless. Billions were at stake. Julian pounced. He called an emergency vote to remove Raphael from financial oversight. The board was divided, but the media firestorm forced their hand. Raphael was humiliated. He confronted Julian that night in the office where their grandfather's portrait still hung above the fireplace. "You couldn't stand that she chose me," Raphael said, "so you decided to destroy me." Julian didn't deny it. "She didn't choose you," he said coldly. "She used you." And that's when Raphael saw it in Julian's eyes. He knew everything. The revenge, the manipulation, the plan. Alina had been exposed, but what Julian didn't know was that Raphael had already proposed, and Alina had said yes. The ring was modest. Not because Raphael couldn't afford better, he could buy entire jewelry chains in Europe, but because Alina had insisted. "I don't need diamonds to remind me of you," she had said. "I need truth." But truth was now the rarest currency in the Moretti family. Alina disappeared after the boardroom fallout. No press releases. No Instagram. Not even Raphael could reach her. He left voicemails, sent encrypted texts, even called mutual contacts from Milan to Dubai. Silence. What he didn't know was that she had gone to confront the ghost that started it all. Julian. She found him alone in the family vineyard in Tuscany, far from the glass towers and flashing cameras. He looked different there, less armored, but still dangerous. "I underestimated you," Julian said without looking at her. "You played your role well." "I didn't lie to you," Alina replied. "Not completely. You seduced both of us. You infiltrated the board. You nearly cost us our brand integrity in Asia." Alina exhaled. "Your father ruined mine, left my mother bankrupt. My father shot himself in front of our fireplace because of the Moretti name." Julian finally turned to her. His eyes, usually as still as ice, showed something close to recognition. Not guilt, not regret, but respect. "You're not the first person whose family was crushed by ambition," he said, "but you're the first who fought back. Intelligently." Alina's lips trembled, but she didn't look away. "I was going to destroy both of you," she said. "But somewhere along the way, I fell for him." Julian didn't flinch. He simply poured a glass of red wine and handed it to her. "You'll regret that," he said. She didn't drink it. Back in New York, Raphael was unraveling. The tabloids were relentless. Investors were pulling out of side projects. And most importantly, the family council was pressuring him to step down from his public-facing role. It was Evelyn Kwan, the CFO, who gave him the final blow. "There's talk of bringing in an outside executive to oversee both of you," she said flatly. "An outsider?" Raphael scoffed. "That's not how we do things." Evelyn looked at him coldly. "It is now." But Raphael wasn't done. He called a press conference the next morning, without Julian's approval, without legal clearance. And he did something no one in the Moretti family had ever done. He told the truth. He admitted the offshore investment. He admitted the conflict of interest with Alina. He even admitted his personal failings. But then he turned the tables. He pulled out a confidential memo leaked from inside Julian's team. It showed that Julian had known about Alina's background for weeks, and had used that knowledge to orchestrate the leak that ruined Raphael's reputation. It was war. Live on national television. Stock in Moretti Industries plummeted within hours. Julian watched it all from his penthouse suite in the company's Manhattan Tower. His lawyers were already drafting statements. His PR team was panicking. But Julian? He was calm. He knew what needed to be done. Raphael had crossed a line, and there was no coming back. That night, Julian arrived at Raphael's apartment unannounced. No security, no legal counsel. Just blood ties and rage. They argued. First with words. Then with hands. The punch came fast. Raphael landed it first. But Julian didn't fall. He retaliated with the precision of a man who had spent his whole life fighting shadows. They broke a vase, a chair, a rib. But then, in the chaos, Julian said something that stopped Raphael cold. "She's still working with me." Raphael froze. "What?" "She came to Tuscany, said she loved you. But then she offered me something better than her love. She offered me you." Raphael's breath caught. "You're lying." "Am I?" Julian whispered. "Ask her." Raphael left the apartment bleeding, but not from his wounds. He drove all night. No driver, no calls. He found Alina at a coastal retreat house in Maine. It was the place she once said she went to disappear from the world. She didn't expect him. Her face dropped when she saw the bruises. The blood. "What happened?" she asked. He didn't answer. "Is it true?" he said, voice cracking. "Did you offer Julian my head on a platter?" Alina didn't respond right away. And that pause, those 2 seconds felt like a gunshot to Raphael's chest. "I didn't expect to fall in love with you," she said finally. "But I also didn't expect you to betray the company on my behalf. That was my choice," he snapped. "Not yours." "I came to Julian to stop him from destroying you entirely," she said. "He was already orchestrating everything. I thought if I played along, I could protect you." "You thought," Raphael repeated bitterly. "But you didn't tell me." Alina stepped closer. "Because I was afraid. Not of Julian, of losing you." Raphael stared at her. This woman who had once been a ghost, now fully human, flawed, and heartbreaking. "I don't know what's real anymore," he said. She took his hand, placed it on her heart. "This," she whispered, "this is real." But it was too late. The scandal had become too large to contain. By the following week, Moretti Industries was bleeding. 3 major clients froze their contracts. The stock dropped another 12%. Employees were resigning in waves. Whispers of bankruptcy, once unthinkable, circulated in financial circles across London, New York, and Geneva. And then came the coup. A faction of senior board members, led by Evelyn Kwan and supported by several key shareholders, moved to temporarily suspend both Julian and Raphael from active leadership. It was unprecedented, but necessary. Public confidence had plummeted. The family's name, once a symbol of power and legacy, had become toxic. Julian took the news without blinking. "They'll come crawling back," he told his assistant. "Once they realize no one else can run this machine." Raphael, on the other hand, disappeared. Some said he left for South America. Others claimed he checked into a rehab clinic under a false name. But no one really knew, except Alina. She found him at the family's abandoned vineyard estate in southern Italy, the same place Julian had once taken her. Now overgrown, forgotten, the gate was rusted, the front door unlocked. He was sitting by the fireplace, unshaven, dressed in black, and drunk. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, without turning around. "I didn't come for your forgiveness," she replied. "Good," he muttered, "because I don't have any left." She sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. "I wanted to tell you everything," she began, "but revenge. It consumed me. For years, it was the only reason I got up in the morning." "I understand that," he said. "I really do." She studied him. But I trusted you. With my family, with my future, with my love. I never lied about that last part, she said quietly. I loved you, Raphael. Still do. The fire cracked. Shadows danced across the stone walls. If that's true, he said, then help me bring Julian down. For good. Her breath caught. Destroying him won't fix the company. Or us. It'll be a start. There was something different in his eyes now. A darkness. A resolve that hadn't been there before. Julian hadn't just ruined Raphael's image. He had stripped him of purpose, of dignity. And Raphael wanted it back. Together, they devised a plan. Not one born from rage, but precision. Alina would leverage what she still had, access. Julian still believed she was useful, maybe even loyal. She would get into his private files where the real secrets were buried, the ones even the board didn't know. Meanwhile, Raphael would return quietly. No press, no announcements. Just shadow work. He would reassemble his allies. The few who hadn't turned their backs on him. Their target wasn't just Julian's position. It was the secret holding Moretti Industries hostage. Because at the heart of the empire, beneath the luxury and legacy, was fraud. Julian had built part of the Moretti fortune on insider trades and manipulated tech valuations overseas. If proven, it could bring down the entire global wing of the company. Alina got the files. It wasn't easy. Julian kept them on a separate offline system, encrypted and stored on a physical drive in a safe, hidden behind a false wall in his private library. But she had been watching, listening, learning. One night, she slipped into his penthouse under the guise of a dinner invitation. He poured wine, asked if she was ready to finish what we started. She smiled, lied, pretended. And while he was distracted, she entered the safe, copied the drive, and left before sunrise. The next morning, Raphael received the files. He didn't hesitate. He sent them directly to Evelyn Kwan, and that's when everything exploded. Evelyn, for all her cold professionalism, was no traitor. She immediately convened an emergency board session. Legal teams were brought in. The SEC was notified, and Julian Moretti was arrested. The images went viral within minutes. One of the most powerful men in global business, escorted in handcuffs from the Moretti Tower, his face unreadable. News anchors called it the fall of the Golden Dynasty. Others simply called it justice. But for Raphael, it felt hollow. He had won, but what had he really gained? The company was safe for now. He was reinstated temporarily as acting CEO. Shareholders breathed easier. The media softened. But his heart was fractured. He didn't attend Julian's arraignment. He didn't celebrate with champagne. He simply stood in the penthouse office, once Julian's domain, and stared at the skyline, as if searching for something he had lost long ago. Alina entered without knocking. "You did it," she said softly. "No," Raphael replied. "We did." She stepped beside him. "I didn't come for congratulations," she added. "I came to say goodbye." He looked at her, finally. "Where will you go?" "I don't know yet. Somewhere quiet, where the Moretti name means nothing." Raphael nodded. "You could stay," he offered, almost whispering. She smiled. A real smile, not seductive, not strategic. "I could. But I think we'd both keep looking at each other and seeing ghosts." He didn't argue. She kissed him lightly, like punctuation on a sentence that had taken too long to end. And then she was gone. For good this time. 3 months later, the Moretti Tower stood taller than ever, but it was no longer a symbol of pride. It was a cautionary monument. Julian's arrest had triggered a series of chain reactions in the business world. Several former partners and subsidiaries were also being investigated. International clients pulled away. Lawsuits stacked up. And yet, Raphael remained in control, at least publicly. But the power didn't taste the same. Every morning, he arrived before sunrise. Every night, he stayed until the floors were dark. He wasn't building an empire anymore. He was salvaging a wreck. There was no more press coverage glamorizing the family legacy. No more gala invitations. No more champagne dinners with venture capitalists. Raphael had become the quiet CEO driven by guilt, focused on reform. Still, some said he had grown colder. Others said wiser. Evelyn Kwan stayed by his side. She had always been loyal to structure, not blood. And Raphael had become structure itself. Unshakable, calculated, no longer swayed by emotion. But at night, when the offices emptied and the city lights blinked in silence, he still thought about Alina. He never heard from her again. No messages, no clues. Sometimes he imagined her starting over in a quiet village. Or maybe somewhere hot and loud where people didn't care about last names. She had disappeared like a shadow just as she came. And Julian? He was still awaiting trial. His lawyers worked overtime to delay court appearances, citing health concerns and procedural irregularities. He had been moved to house arrest in one of the Moretti estates in the Alps. The man who once controlled nations with a phone call was now monitored by an ankle bracelet. But he wasn't done yet. One morning, Raphael received a personal envelope. No name on it, just the family crest. Inside, a handwritten note in Julian's exact script. There are two types of power, the kind you lose, and the kind you bury. Let's talk. Evelyn advised against it. Legal told him to ignore it. Raphael went anyway. He flew to the Alps alone. No security, no press. The estate was quiet white walls, endless glass, and mountain silence. Julian greeted him with a cane and a smirk. "Still playing the hero?" he said. "I'm here to hear what you have to say." Julian gestured toward the fireplace. The same design as the one in Tuscany. It was their grandfather's favorite. "There's more to the story," Julian began. "You think I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But I never wanted the empire to fall." "You caused it," Raphael snapped. "No, Father caused it. I just did what I had to do to keep us alive." Raphael shook his head. "You manipulated, threatened, sabotaged." "I protected us," Julian cut in. "You think playing by the rules keeps dynasties alive? It doesn't. I built shields around us." Raphael stood. "You built cages. And you locked me in one." Julian stared at him, then reached for a remote. A screen descended from the ceiling. Surveillance footage. Julian pressed play. It showed Alina inside Julian's office weeks before the scandal. She was holding a USB, standing by the safe, looking conflicted. Then she turned to Julian. "If I do this," she said, "you'll spare him?" Julian's voice from the recording. "Only if you deliver it yourself. I want him to feel the betrayal." Raphael's throat went dry. He remembered the day he received the files. They had arrived anonymously. He assumed Alina had slipped away, too ashamed to face him. But she hadn't. She had tried to protect him, even while completing her mission. She had sacrificed herself. Julian paused the video. "She chose you," he said. "And I couldn't stand it. That was my final mistake." Raphael stared at his cousin. For the first time in his life, he saw the man not as a rival, but as a tragedy. A genius consumed by legacy. A boy who never became free. "You still have time to make things right," Raphael said quietly. "Confess. Spare the company the court battles. Give us peace." Julian looked out the window. Snow was falling now. "I don't believe in peace," he replied. "But I do believe in debt." "What do you mean?" Julian turned to him. "You owe me. For what?" "For not letting her take you down with me." Silence filled the room. Raphael left without another word. Back in New York, the board was preparing a global restructuring. Raphael's leadership had stabilized investor confidence, but the damage was deep. Moretti Industries would never return to its former glory. That was the price of truth. And Raphael had made peace with it. In the final days of that fiscal year, he held a press conference, not to boast numbers, but to announce the company's transformation. "We're no longer a family empire," he said. "We're a public responsibility. And I no longer lead for power. I lead for legacy." The crowd applauded. But behind every camera, behind every flashbulb, one question lingered. Would he ever forgive himself? 2 years later, the world had moved on, but the shadows of the Moretti name lingered. Raphael was no longer the young face of a powerful dynasty. He had become something different, something quieter. A man forged by disgrace, grief, and responsibility. Under his leadership, Moretti Industries didn't return to dominance. It evolved. The corporation split into 3 independent sectors, each governed by external boards. Raphael kept only one, Moretti Foundation, a nonprofit that focused on rebuilding communities affected by corporate corruption. He no longer flew private jets or wore custom Italian suits. His new office was small. Wood desk, no glass walls, no skyline view, just peace. Sometimes, late at night, he would walk the halls of the foundation and think of everyone he had lost. His father, long buried. His cousin, now serving a reduced sentence in a white-collar facility in Belgium. And Elena. Always Elena. He thought of the ring he had given her, the one she had returned in an envelope months after her goodbye. No note, just the ring and a tiny pressed flower folded inside the box. Lavender. He remembered what she once said about it. Lavender means silence and healing. He kept the flower in his wallet. One day, as summer began to fold into autumn, Raphael received a letter. It was handwritten, no address, just a name, Ale Viscari. Inside, the note was short. "There's a village in northern Portugal. I serve coffee here now, and I breathe. If you ever want to breathe too, come find me, A." He didn't book a flight right away. He stared at the letter for weeks. Folded it, unfolded it. Read it until the ink faded into his mind. He was no longer the man she once loved, but he had never stopped loving her. And finally, on the first rainy morning of October, he boarded a plane. The village was small. No hotels. No taxis. Just stone houses, ivy-covered walls, and ocean air. He found the cafe easily. It had no sign, just open shutters and the scent of roasted beans. She was there, hair tied up, no makeup, wearing an apron stained with coffee grounds. She looked up and froze. And then, slowly, she smiled. "I saved your seat," she said softly. Raphael stepped forward. No words, just breath. They sat for hours. No questions about the past, no apologies. Just the sound of coffee cups, wind through the shutters, and the unspoken truth between two people who had broken and rebuilt themselves, separately, but always with a shared heartbeat. Eventually, she reached across the table. "I don't want a second chance," she said. He looked at her, startled. "I want a first real one. No lies, no empires, just us." Raphael took her hand, and for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Hope. They stayed in that village. Not forever, but long enough to plant something neither of them had known how to name before. Stillness. In time, people forgot the scandal. The newspapers stopped printing the Moretti name. Another billionaire took the spotlight. Another dynasty collapsed. But in that quiet cafe by the sea, a different kind of legacy was born, not built in towers, but in truth.